I say let's get into the story, man.
All right.
I wanna talk about this thing while I'm still
All
here.
right. Chernobyl, season 1, episode 1/23/45, available on HBO, Sky, and Amazon. Written by Craig Mazin with Jared Harris, Jesse Buckley of Fargo, Orietta, and Stellan Skarsgård. So there's a connection there to what we've been doing. Everyone's aware of Chernobyl now. And listening to writer Craig Mazin did a podcast on this, on episode 1, titled after for the time of the explosion. That till then, Chernobyl meant nothing to anyone. People of the town, the citizenry, had very little knowledge of radiation effects. As you think about the community with walking with baby walkers, all watching from the bridge, as a kilometer away, the reactor was burning. There's distinct parallels, I'm sure we'll probably all agree, with Chernobyl and the world that we exist in now. As we listen to the opening voice of Valery Legasov, Jared Harris. What is the cost of lies? It is not that we will mistake them for the truth. The real danger is that if we hear enough lies, that we will no longer recognize the truth at all.
2020.
2020. We content ourselves in stories. In these stories, it doesn't matter who the heroes are. What matters is who is to blame. Starts talking about the man they blame, which is Anatoly Dyatlov. I'm butchering these Russian names.
Yes, you are.
He was the best choice.
That's okay, Rick. They're Russian.
But there were far greater criminals than him at work. He doesn't deserve. Interesting. At this point, I kind of thought he was going to seemed like he was going to kind of not take or defend Anatoly. He doesn't deserve prison. He deserves death. Stops listening to the recording and talks a bit about himself. He starts recording himself again. Justice has been done. A just world is a send one world to them. He speaks of them. There was nothing sane about Chernobyl madness. Goes through the routine of taking out the garbage, you saw that, and then hangs himself at 1/23/45. And then we sets up.
And you saw he took the tapes.
The tapes.
He took the tapes, yeah. He took and hid the tapes. I don't know what he quite did with the tapes, but obviously he put them in a place.
He gave them to somebody.
Gave them to somebody, right.
Yeah.
He sets a recurring theme of this first episode. We witness the cost of lies, how intelligent people in a lower position are committed to doing the wrong thing. The control room begins immediately. That Anatoly Dyatlov continual denial of reality. So we're engaged, as well as the men in that control room, in a lie. And the one person trying to convey the truth is considered he's delusional. Get him out of here. Dyatlov then is committed to committing his fellow engineers to acting as though there is a core and that we need to get water running through the core. A page from existentialism, and that these men are all must engage in acts that they know will kill them. There's a bunch of scenes and stuff like that that I think are worth talking about. I'm going to let you guys jump in here, but just in that opening sequence there, give me your thoughts. What was most? There's a lot there that I'm sure is jarring and hits you. As well as me. But there's one thing that kind of came over a couple of times was said in there was a line that I sort of like was interesting. The one comrade, I don't know the character's name, said, "We did everything right. Something has suddenly gone wrong." And then later near the end, this is we did everything, we didn't do anything wrong. Similar thing, we didn't do anything, but we did. The one because but we did. As they're turning those levers, trying to get water out. So with that, fellas.
Well, Rick, why don't you go first? Because, apparently I think Jack has seen it. He recommended this for us. So I'm kind of curious on what was your thoughts seeing this episode for the very first time?
Well, I listened to the episode, and I wound up seeing it a couple of times. And I did it in increments, like 20-minute increments, so I could sit down and then come back to it. And I also listened to the podcast of the writer who did the podcast. So he was kind of like, in many ways, he was kind of, not that I couldn't get it there, but it was kind of interesting to hear him talk about this. And he's the one who talked about that in this opening thing where the guy's talking about this, and when we don't see him in this till the end of this episode, this episode, but everything in here happens more or less is really on display, right? We see it in action from there on out after he commits suicide. The lies, the continual lies. Anatoly, right off the bat, Anatoly Dyatlov just refusing that there's anything wrong with the core, just get water through the core, and really committing people to that one line where the guy was, they kind of all knew, you look at it in their eyes, they all knew that, in a better consciousness, whatever, they would sit there and say, no fucking way, man. Or, he's sitting there and he's saying, the guy was like nervous and, I guess imagine yourself being in a situation that you'd never been in before. You know what the right thing to do is, but you have this power structure where the guy sits there and he says, I don't know that I can make anything better for you, but I can make it worse, but I can make your life worse. And the guy was committed. And the writer spoke to this weird, he said he could only explain as sort of a weird citizen, community citizenship, of acting in the sense, out of a sense of community. And when he's talking about it, he means the people, the first these engineers who are clearly, from that I'm pointing out, they're all walking and going and doing things that is going to kill them. They know that it's going to kill them. They know better, but they're going to kill them. They only got resistance. The guy who basically first brought the information to him, was just bringing something he didn't want to hear, and that was like his fault. He says, "Get him out of here. He's delusional. Get him out of. Take him medication. Starts puking. Get him out of here." All the signs that are clearly saying, there's something really wrong there. He was just committed. He was now committed because of all this. You saw it later on when they went to, the first time there's the three of them, that 3-person scene of the guy who got up out of bed, they dragged him out of bed, and the other guy, and the Dyatlov, or Anatoly, I'm just going to Anatoly. And he says, don't worry, you won't, no one will blame you for this. And the guy who's there with basically the power in that thing says, I know no one will do, because how could they? I just got out of bed,
Mm-hmm.
And so then there was kind of a neat interchange between the other two, which was kind of a conspiracy or some type between them, kind of blaming it, kind of a back and forth, but they're coming to a consensus of like how they're going to play this off now,
Yeah. Who's to blame?
Yeah. And then just continually more people, but more and more, guy bleeding through his thing. All these guys that we spoke of that are out there, the engineers are walking into these places of like, just the walking death,
Well, you remember that scene too, later on, after the foreman, the guy that wouldn't believe his men whatsoever, he started vomiting.
Yeah.
Because he said he was going to take a look at it, and he got sick.
And he got sick.
So then they go to one of the workers, and they're like, "You go," and he literally just says, "No, I'm not doing it."
Right.
But then there's like, it's going to be okay. Like the powers that be not only persuade him to go, but they literally give him a guard, almost as if they're forcing him. You're going to go do this.
That was an interesting, that was very interesting.
They didn't give him a guard. They forced him to do it.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think in that scene, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he said no because they were telling him to go do it before, and Anatoly was saying, "You got to go." They were all basically telling him, and he was refusing. It's when Anatoly puked, and he puked up, because he was going to say, "I'll go do it," I'll go look, and then he vomited, and of course he's out. And then they kept coming back to him, and now he really had no choice. It was like, that was like, I was just so, blown away by that. And also the townspeople, I just thought that was so, like, the guy's carrying his baby carriage and he's talking, and they're going to go look at this thing from a bridge or something like that. And that scene where they're all out there in that air.
Well, in future episodes, you find out what happened to all those people.
Yeah.
Which is, it's sad and it's disturbing. It's like they're looking at what they think is just a fire, but then ash is coming down on them, which they assume that's what it is.
Right.
And you're actually seeing like kids playing around with it like it's snow and everything. And it's interesting knowing what the story is, how you're just like, it's a horror film, really.
Yeah.
And you're just like saying, no, get out. Everybody need to evacuate. I felt like the first episode really did play like a horror film, where nobody was accepting blame. And it is interesting of the power structure, because they have it in their mind that we couldn't possibly done anything wrong,
right?
And to the point where the foreman, I guess he's the, what's his character's name again?
I believe it's Anatoly.
Anatoly.
The Utlov.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that when they said, what about put water to the core, but the core isn't there, it exploded. Yeah. The idea that he would not go and check it out for himself. He dismissed it as, you're delusional, that's impossible. Because the thought of that core exploding meant people were going to die. That was like so serious. But I thought it was fascinating that you could be that blinded for the possibility that could have happened, that you would just deem that as being a mistake. And talk about living in heavy denial. That, I mean, I haven't seen anything quite like it. Well, wait a minute. Or yeah, maybe I have seen something quite like it a little bit. But I do think, though, watching the episode of these men, these powerful men that are responsible for this, are all kind of trying to keep it quiet, trying to downplay it. And there was that one boardroom meeting where the old man literally just said, hey,
Zarkov.
Yes. It was like, let's not panic. And that's always the first
number one
problem.
Lenin, what Lenin said, whatever it was,
yeah.
Vladimir I. Lenin Power Plant. That's his real name.
Let's not panic. The public doesn't need to know. Downplay it. Right. The irony that we would be watching this on the 2020 with the whole pandemic, and look, we were experiencing that in our own lifetime,
right?
With the president knowing what he knows, not informing us and having people die. I mean, you can't help but watch that and just going, holy crap! And hearing the same politics happen again and again is really that's pretty disgusting.
I know. I think when I think of this, I think of the in other words, I think of those engineers and everybody, the worker people worked in there. I think of them basically like our nurses, medical staff.
Yeah.
I think, and here's a funny thing actually too, is another parallel, is the number of incompetent people who are in these power positions.
Yes.
And the people who understand and know, what to do are basically in a position.
With the shoe salesman before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. I think of when Fauci's in front of the Senate. It amazes me sometimes how they just, instead of using him to help them figure it out, they spend so much time shitting on him.
I think a lot of it, well, look, all of it is politics. And all of it, I think the people that knows what's going on, they don't play politics, you find. They'll tell it as it is, because their mindset is saving lives.
Yeah.
Where politicians and people that are in power mindset is, how do we cover this up so we don't get blamed? And I think that's the distinction. I think that's the reason why they tend to dismiss someone that actually knows what's going on. But the irony is, if they just listen to the people that have certain answers, it might not have gotten so out of hand. I think it's the denial of, one, there's a problem, and two, how big is the problem. And by the time they figure it out, it's already too late.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny how there's almost an intrinsic mistrust of science by government. You know, governments don't trust science, even though they should. Well, I mean, it's a little different because we're talking about a police state at the time, you know, for not much longer. But I mean, at the time, it was still the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And just later on, I mean, the stakes still get raised in future episodes of this.
Right.
But one of the things that does come out is like it's a society where at any time someone is watching you.
Yeah.
At any given time, and no matter who you are, whether you're the premier, you know, you're Gorbachev or whatever, someone's watching you at any given time.
Yeah. Well, we see that at the very beginning of the episode where you got the Jared Harris. He's your, I'm assuming, your protagonist in this story. Yes. After making the tapes and stuff like that, he sees that there's a car across the street from where he lives, watching him, and right from the get-go, you get the sense of, wow, even though the events are, you know, I'm assuming the events are over, but because this is like 2 years later from when the incident happened, the fact that he hung himself at the beginning of the movie lets you know how fucked up the situation really must have been.
Well,
and it was, which it was.
In the movie, he hangs himself 2 years to the minute that the explosion happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. 1:23:45.
But in real life, he died a day after the 2 year anniversary of him going there.
Yeah.
So like he made it 2 years and then he croaked.
Right.
In real life.
What was his character's name?
I'm sorry. You said after 2? Did he hang himself?
No, he just
didn't
died.
hang himself.
No,
he just died. Okay.
His name is Valery Legasov.
I'm very curious to see why he did it and how he felt responsible enough or felt guilty enough that would take his own life. I'm very, very curious. I mean, look, let's be honest. If you were the guy who were making those bad calls, like the foreman, but
he wasn't. He wasn't. Was reporting on
I know. That's why I'm curious on seeing where that.
You see with the whole police state thing, how they don't trust scientists.
I think at the end there, when he gets that phone call, you get a glimpse of to why, because in that phone call, obviously he's got a lot of knowledge about this reactor, and others. He has that knowledge, and he has spoken to the guys. He's really not allowed to speak. Yes, I am him. You know, that's about as much as he gets out. Every time he tries to speak after that, he's cut off, and basically he's told, you're put on a committee, and it's for, what was the term? He says it's for to be something. It's not for policy. It's for, you know. So in other words,
you're answering. You're answering questions on the power plants because you are like the authority of nuclear power plants and stuff. And that phone call was not a choice.
Right.
That was literally like, even when he said, but even in the phone call, they tried to cover it up. It's just this explosion. How bad was it? Oh, it wasn't that bad.
Right.
It was only this scale. And then he turned around with, no, that's actually pretty bad.
I know. That's, we need to get doing that. It's like cut off, like everything was cut off. It's like, that seemed to be the pattern throughout the whole thing. Like I said, the scientists, people with the knowledge were really, really like put in a place of.
Did you get past the first episode? Did you go further?
I didn't go. I don't want to go
further. Me too. I just wanted to really concentrate on this episode.
Right.
I actually watched it a couple of times. But I do plan on finishing it though, to be honest with you, because you don't get quite a setup like that.
Here's the thing: we didn't know everything we needed to know about Chernobyl.
Yeah.
We should have known way more while it was happening, and of course, we didn't know anything while it was happening.
Right.
It could have affected North America. It could have affected the entire planet.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's and also you get the feeling at that opening that they got away with it. You know, I mean, because he pretty much says, I mean, just the fact that he mentioned that this guy got 10 years, one guy got 10 years where he should have gotten death, you know, and that now it's all behind them. I think when you're living in a oppressed state like that, like you said, it was only a few years before the Soviet Union was going to fall. Maybe you could get a sense of someone that has honor might feel like, if I can't tell the truth and I know everything, then what's the point? You know, it's very interesting.
Well, and I got to tell you, in the next couple episodes, the stakes get way higher.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, you know, you think the stakes are pretty high. They get higher.
Well, let me ask you, Jack. I mean, what was when you first saw this the pilot? What was your thoughts when you first watched it?
I thought it was so well written. First of all,
yeah,
so well done. And this was this guy's first thing, first major writing project, and it was so good. I love the fact that he personalized it, you know, like he got the firefighter and his wife, you know, that whole thing. I you know, made it, you know, brought it back to us, you know,
right.
Instead of just making it about the scientists.
And how? Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I don't remember my point. Sorry.
No, but I was just thinking. I love the visual and terrified at the same time of how they set the explosion up through the house of the apartment of the firefighter and his wife. Right. The moment you see it out the window, you see a little bit of explosion, then you see a big explosion, and then you got the aftershock.
You feel it, yeah.
Oh, you felt it, and you know, right off the bat, you're just like, oh shit! It's almost like this is how it would happen. This is how it would go down. And nobody would know anything at first. Again, you know, very similar to the pandemic that we're going through. You're just getting a lot of misinformation, and I love that thing that he says at the beginning in the tapes about the whole reason that you're telling untrue stories is that after a while, nobody can decipher what's true and what's not. Propaganda, again, enters into the atmosphere. And it's we haven't really changed that much from that.
Well, interestingly enough, the writer that when I was listening to the podcast writer, because he was talking about that, and he said when he was talking about how Chernobyl meant nothing to anyone before that, you know, that event, he talked about, he goes, people. He's talking about the disinformation, the propaganda committee, everything like that. He said, people are sometimes under the impression that can't happen here. That can't happen anywhere else. That can only happen there. And because of, you know, so of course it happened in the Soviet Union, blah, 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 because of what they're. But when he started talking about it, he said people get under this delusion that can't happen anywhere else. You know, that there's not a power structure, that people don't, you know, it's nobody wants, you know, especially the thing. We were talking a little bit about this on a smaller scale with the character in season 2 of Fargo, Peggy. You know, after she hits a guy with a car, it's like, seems like she just doesn't want to admit, you know, she does not want to admit that she hit someone. Again, on a smaller scale, but it's still someone's life. But it took a lot for her to come out of it. Even it took a long time for her to basically acknowledge that she hit someone. But now this take this at a bigger scale, and so much more is at stake. Power at stake. All these power people in these positions. None of them want this stain on them. And you mean
like a president that lost an election and doesn't believe that he lost the election? You know, something like that.
I would say most definitely, obviously, everything he's done with this pandemic, and now he's going to execute five people before, you know, on the way out. He's doing everything he can to fucking just try and be shitty. I don't know. I mean, just just shittiness, you know.
Well, that's not shitty from his point of view. He can't help being an authoritarian.
Right.
It's just in his nature. I mean, one of the reasons I thought of Chernobyl for this was that episode of Fargo with the that began in East Germany. You know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, that was like that made me think of the show.
Oh yeah. Because that whole season is very much, we talked about that story, truth and story, you know, and that how they mix that up to.
They said it in the episode too. They said about truth, and then they talked about story. In a lot of ways, it did feel we are capturing a theme between Fargo and now Chernobyl about what's truth, what's story, and how people in power can manipulate one to service themselves.
Because they have their own truth.
Yeah,
their own truth isn't necessarily factual.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Most of the time, it isn't.
Yeah.
You know, and again, I think the idea that it's not me and it's not you, then this didn't either this didn't happen, or we'll just get a scapegoat on who did it. You know, but it's definitely not about finding the truth of, you know, like finding what happened, what happened that made this happen. How do we stop it? How do we save lives? Was not in those men's forethought when they all got together in that room to talk about what's going on.
Yeah.
How many people? Go ahead.
I was just gonna, Jack, when Mac mentioned that, you know, these they don't seem, no matter where the people don't seem like scientists, it's because of that truth. They only know their facts and data, and they can't. It's like they can't not know that, and it's different. You know, it's like, as a matter of fact, the people that do, you know, you can really see them write out, you know, people that are basically sellouts, who compromise everything that they quote unquote learned.
Like Anatoly.
Anatoly did. Although Anatoly, I don't even know, was he actually an engineer, or did he just rise to that position through something? Do you know the history on him, Jack?
I don't.
All right. But he had to have some sort of like training, right, in that field?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many people have died in Chernobyl?
That I don't know, but it's been a few thousand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of it is residual. I mean, actually, I'll look it up. I can look it up right now.
I mean, it is written so well and so raw on the things that are happening, and in a lot of ways, it kind of felt like you're watching this documentary of these guys going to their deaths,
right?
Not because the power at B. It's like they didn't have a plan B, you know. Like if this should happen, you do this. You know, I would think you would have evacuated or shut down whatever you need to shut down, evacuated. They didn't. They stayed in there and they kept checking these things to see if, if it's as bad as they think it is. When one guy surely came in and said, there is no core. Right. It actually exploded. and to be dismissed. Like, oh, he's delusional.
Vilified, dismissed.
Yeah, it's amazing how people, like Fauci, you know, somebody that actually knows what they're talking about, knows the number. And I remember he even said back in the day, hey, you know, this is going to resurface in the wintertime. And the Republicans did a lot to try to discredit him and just say, well, you don't know. Science doesn't know anything. And it is. We are living in a time that is where a lot more people, particularly people in power, are distrusting science and distrusting facts, and looking for their own set of alternative facts.
I think we said this last week. My opinion is as valid as your facts.
Yeah. I've been hearing a lot of that.
Well, so and you guys were talking about, you know, could this happen again? It kind of did happen again, sort of, in Japan with Fukushima, that you know, the earthquake and then the tidal wave.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't nearly as bad, but yeah.
Yeah.
So it can happen again. I'm having a beer. I don't care about you guys. I'm having a beer.
You're having a beer? Shit, I don't want to be the only one not having a beer. I want to go get a beer. You
Greg's
bastard.
not having a beer. Greg's sick. Greg doesn't deserve a beer.
And when shit fucks up, it's usually due to incompetence and a group of people trying to cover it up.
Speaking of incompetence, did you see that Scott Atlas resigned today?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
What?
So who knows if he resigned or he quit or who knows what the fuck happened.
Oh, it's a Trump appointee resigning?
He was the guy that like they were starting to listen to instead of Fauci.
Okay. Yep.
He was the guy giving bad advice.
Yep.
He's Anatoly.
Yep. Well, I mean, it makes doing the right thing very, very difficult, in situations like that, because
right.
how do you do the right thing when your bosses are constantly slapping you down, and if they're controlling the narrative, if they're controlling the news, then it's scary. It is kind of scary to when you're like, I want to be able to tell the truth, and my job is not allowing me to do that.
One of the things that Craig Mazin actually said in this podcast, he said something interesting because he was talking about that, how they will go on and they kept lying about this. They kept going on and on. He goes, the fact that, that all this eventually comes out, he goes, in the end, truth is going to come out. You could try as hard as you want, but it's going to come out, so it's just that so many people get, caught, so many people are expended, their lives are expended in the process. However it comes to them. But you can't keep it forever like that.
What do you mean?
I'm talking about that little committee room where all those guys who were above.
They were all probably dead within weeks.
Yeah. In the committee room? Really?
Well, they were all there.
They're all there.
They're all there.
That's true. They stayed.
Yeah.
At least they, if they evacuated, then sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, but see, sometimes you could even, I mean, God, this is too close to home, but you could be such a denial that against your own self-interest. It's one thing to deny something that you think could hurt you as far as your job or as far as your position. But as far as your health, we've seen it too, where they think it could be handled or they have it under control. It's all about the illusion of control, the perception that we can't show how not in control we are, and that's usually people die when government act that way or people in power act that way. Episode. I mean, and again, it was very much like a horror story, seeing those guys go in there and then seeing the effects that this chemical had on people and how it was
that fireman that lifted that graphite, he lifted that graphite in his hand, like a couple minutes later he was just it was just down. That was like, oh man, it's
I don't know how many times I saw fire guys and I wanted to, there was so many times I wanted to say, where's your mask? Where's your mask? Put on a hazmat suit. Why are you going into this? I mean, but I think that was the first time something like that really ever happened. So a lot of people were very ignorant, not knowing the dangers that they were rushing into.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I'm tempted to give you some spoilers from future episodes.
Don't do it, Jack.
I'm gonna give you a spoiler.
Yeah, you can give
one spoiler. And that's
one
it.
Spoiler. Go for it, Jack.
So in Soviet society, the miners were really important because they were sort of like the engine of the Soviet economy, coal and mining and all that. So they brought in a bunch of miners to fix this, but it was so hot underneath where they had to go, they all went naked. You know, they because it was like over 100 degrees where they were going, so they all went underneath.
Jeez.
And they knew,
right? They knew what was coming.
Because
what the fate was.
Yeah.
Oh
man.
So,
well,
so there's some heroism there, you know.
Yeah, that's. I think of that first thing he said. You know, nobody wants to. They don't want to talk about the heroes, the people who are the heroes. They just want someone to blame. That was the important thing, and that bureaucracy, that fucking man. Yeah. So
this is a good holiday show to watch.
I want to let you guys know if if it came like something like that down to it, I'd be proud to walk naked with you guys.
Yeah.
What? The fuck?
Oh my goodness! All right, Rick.
I'm looking at your old man ass.
I would be more proud if you put your clothes back on, Rick.
even if it's not that hot out there down there.
They literally had to get under. They had to build a tunnel underneath the thing.
Underneath it.
And it was 50 degrees Celsius. 50 degrees Celsius.
Jeez.
What did that do when they did in doing that? I mean, obviously, what was how did it cause it to
because they had to there would have been a reaction had all this stuff that was sort of melting down, if it had melted through down into the water, there would have been a thermal explosion. So yet another explosion, and this is way more than Hiroshima.
So these guys were heroes.
Yeah. Oh, they absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. That is so crazy.
And I'm almost wishing you guys had seen the whole series.
Well, I mean, look, let's be honest. I don't think this. There's just so much stuff to watch, but this was one of those.
To watch. Well,
but this is one of those things where, regardless, well, what we could do too is maybe, because it's a 5-parter, but maybe we can watch on our own time all of it, and then come back, and then also do a review on the whole season.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I watched 3 episodes today.
Okay. I was tempted. I was a little tempted, but again, I kind of wanted to focus on the pilot episode, because I also think that pilot episodes are so important, because they inform you on whether or not you're going to continue watching the story. And every time we've talked about a pilot episode, I've had the same feeling. I've yet to talk about a pilot episode on this show where I did not want to watch the next episode.
Right.
Yeah.
So in terms of like story-wise, it was perfect because they started out with him. He kills himself, but everything that he says in there, we see in action from that point on. There's denials. The committee people, who to blame and stuff like that. All that shit, and then right at the end, they come to him. And he's basically, it just sounds ominous, this thing where he's no choice, you're going to be on the committee. We don't, we just, you're there for, I forgot again the thing, but he says, you're not there for policy, you're not there for policy.
You're the expert.
Yeah. And so it just sets up, there's this ominous fucking feeling that he's basically there at some point to either be, be the person to point at, or put in a position of blame or whatever.
Or the person that can somehow agree with their assessment.
Their assessment, yeah, right, yeah. He might be there to go along,
Right. Having an expert there could be like, hey, there was nothing they could have done, or yada, yada.
If he says that, right.
Regardless, that scene made you feel like he's a puppet.
Right.
Because that conversation was completely one-sided.
Which scene?
The very ending, the last scene where Valari,
the Jared Harris character
Jared
gets
Harris
the phone
character
call.
gets the phone call near the end. It's near
And
the end.
he's being told he's on the committee.
Yeah, he's being instructed what's going to happen.
Right.
And they just want to hear him say, "Oh, yes,"
Mm-hmm.
I think they want to make him the puppet. I don't know. The fact that he kills him, the fact that he kills himself makes you think that he basically.
I never had himself. I never felt that he was a puppet. I felt like he was fighting an unjust system,
right?
Where he that wasn't allowing him to speak. I don't think of him as a puppet, because to me a puppet sort of goes along with what's being said.
Oh no! What I was saying is they're trying to make him be like a puppet, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the conflict's going to come in.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
And I think we've already learned him well enough to know that he's not going to be a puppet.
Right. Exactly.
I
mean the setting of the tapes, to actually telling the truth of what actually happened, even the taking of his life, the understanding that there was so much more that could have been done that wasn't, and you get the sense that the truth, what might have been the only way the truth was going to get out,
right?
And even the guilt of the people that didn't make it, or the people that died, showed a very complex character that you're going to follow within the 2 years earlier. But the way that the regime treats their workers are like puppets. They're marionettes. They give them their orders, and even when you try to protest, like we've seen a couple of the engineers do, they'll just go, "It's like, it's okay. I'll never get over that." One guy says, "It'll be fine. It'll be okay. You go on up there and take a look," and force them to actually do it. So
yeah. That character was really so interesting, because I mean, the look on his face when he was walking towards the where he had to go, I mean, the concept of just preparing yourself for your end, and it's just like, I thought, as much as I could imagine how, I thought that's what it would be like. In other words, you're fucking going down, and then when he turned around and his face was just, I was just blown away how immediately everybody seemed to like have their faces all of a sudden were red. That one fella who was like just seeping blood was just like through his pants.
That was tough.
I was like, and he just wanted a cigarette. I was like, that scene was like almost like too fucking unreal.
But I mean, once the radiation is that high, nothing works. Like you saw the helicopter. The reason the helicopter disintegrated was because it was right over the. Did we see that scene?
I don't know.
No, that was not in the.
That's another spoiler you gave away, Jack.
I have a funny feeling, Rick. At some point, we're going to have to finish watching this.
Mechanical things don't work there, because, so like even a flashlight will sort of explode.
Yeah.
So
that's scary.
Yeah, it's horrifying.
It really is. But I mean,
it could have been so much worse. And that's the part that I want you guys to see.
All right.
All right. Well, no, I mean, look, Jack, I knew when I watched it, I remember thinking to myself, well, this isn't just a one and done show. It was but I'm saying it's so good. Right. And the characters are so interesting, and you get invested in the story, because again, not a lot of us know a lot about Chernobyl.
Even that last image.
Right. Yes.
The bird.
When the bird.
Kids, this beautiful day. People are walking along.
Kids are going.
I thought that was a perfect ending. It's like shit's coming.
Mm-hmm.